I'm Paul.
And I'm Kenny, and this is EWPK.
For those of you who don't know this, when you see Live from New York, that's literally what's going on in my head, not in reality. Right? That's
You
the
know,
entirety of it.
it is appropriate because our guest today is in New York, lives in New York. So it is live in New York, actually.
Okay, well, we have an excuse at least for one show.
Well, we got to
Like,
take what we can get.
normally, it's just what goes on in my head, and that's the end of it.
And you know where I am right now? I'm about as far away from New York as you can get. I'm in Hawaii, which is why
Whoa.
I'm wearing my Aloha shirt. So those who know me, if you really knew me, you would know that every Friday I do wear an Aloha shirt for the last probably decade of my career, and because I celebrate Aloha Friday, which is an awesome.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a huge thing in Hawaii. It was actually created by a bank manager who one day on Friday decided he didn't want to wear a suit and actually wore an aloha shirt, and then instituted that as part of the bank, and it caught on.
How long ago did that happen? I know nothing about this.
I don't know. It's a good question, but I can find out before the end. In fact, you know what?
Co-pilot.
As we wrap up, I will. I'll have that information because I can. I have access to the internet here. I can figure it out.
Whoa.
I know.
Hawaii has advanced a
I,
great
I
deal
know. I know.
since
Um,
statehood.
I'm in a little. I'm in an area called Kailua. For those of you who are familiar with Oahu, um, it's on the opposite side of Honolulu, and it's really. I would highly recommend it. It's an amazing place to spend the.
I've only been to Hawaii like twice.
Well, you're on the other side of the U.S. You know, it's hard for you. That's a big trip for you.
How long a trip is it from San Francisco area?
Four and a half, 4.5 hours there
Oh,
and 5 hours back.
that's not
So
bad.
it's not bad. But for you, it would be
10,
10.
double, basically
Yeah,
double.
yeah. And for you, you would probably go to some other closer warm place if you wanted to, right?
No, I mean we went to Hawaii once. So I was the Millionaires Club of some insurance company asked me to come speak, and part of they not only paid me a ungodly amount of money for it, but at the same time they offered me and Yvonne first class tickets on plane and uh, accommodations at the resort that they're staying. They stayed in. It was on Kauai, and it was
Oh, I love
I
Hawaii.
can't remember the name of the resort now, but it was stunning and a great restaurant on there. And um, I mean, we loved it. But and the other time we went was on a cruise. Didn't
Oh
love
yeah,
why
Cruise.
there it was more standard. You went to Honolulu, because of port. Went to a couple other places. Actually, to be honest, the thing I remember the most is we passed on the way there. Somehow we passed an active volcano.
Oh yeah, on Kauai.
No, it
Or
wasn't on Kauai. This is on the cruise, which was
oh yes, so
elsewhere.
probably on Big Island. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we
Well,
actually at night.
I just there really is this aloha spirit, this concept. People let you switch lanes graciously in front of them. They wait for you. They take care of the elderly. They're generous. It's just really incredible. Although there's not that many 100% Hawaiian blood anymore, right?
Also,
So
that doesn't sound like it's part of the United States either.
no, I know. That's why it's so nice coming from the Bay Area, whose drivers are just absolutely ridiculous and angry. More so than LA. LA is more like driving as a sport. and people are just like, we just got to get where we need to get, but we're not going to keep you from getting there. In the Bay Area, it's more like a zero-sum game. Like if I let you in, then I lose, and it's exhausting. So I come over here and I drive around, and I'm like, oh, this is, even though there is traffic, I'm just
That's funny. I remember years ago, I had this time where I was commuting between Virginia and Boston, and I'd go up to Boston area every week. And every time I was in Boston, well, let me set the stage. The first time I went to Boston, which was before I took this job, I was meeting with Lotus, right? And back
Lotus.
then, Lotus, and Lotus was more than a flower. And I was warned when I go there that people are crazy drivers. And I said, "No, I mean, how could it be any worse than anywhere else?" And they said, "No, you're going to see people make um, left turns from right lanes. You're going to see this."
Your sound is going a little off, Paul.
How about now?
Yep, better.
Okay. So I said, well, I don't believe that's going to happen. So I was eating at the very first, I think it was Red Lobster ever or something like that. And I'm sitting there and looking out the window, and damn if I didn't see two people literally in a row make left turns from the right lane. And my experience in Boston only deteriorated after that. Every time I would go to Boston, I always felt like I was a character in Grand Theft Auto. I think it was 2 at the time. That they were waiting for me to emerge from somewhere so they could run me over. Right? I mean, I've never in my life seen drivers who literally were waiting to kill you. Right? So, hearing what you're talking about in Hawaii.
Oh my God, it is, and the beauty is you're driving, and then the food, the Hawaiian food. I mean, I just love. It's not necessarily the healthiest, but boy, I love kalua pig and rice. I'm not a big what's the Hawaiian meat?
Meat?
Yeah, it comes in a can. Spam.
Oh,
Big
spam.
spam fan, but a lot of people in Hawaii are.
Really?
From wartime.
Is there like gourmet spam now?
What?
Is there gourmet spam now?
There's gourmet ways to prepare spam. It's pretty much all the same.
Yes.
But and shave ice. Like I know there's also a Hawaiian saimin. In fact, if you come to Hawaii and you go to on Oahu, there is a saimin restaurant called Shige's Saimin that's been on the Food Network.
Okay.
It's the people who own it are part of my wife's family, and they just got rated as one of the best hamburgers in the United States.
Really?
Yep. And in fact, what one of the owners told me is that someone from San Francisco flew in, drove to Shige's, got a hamburger, and then flew back. And I will vouch. I had one last night. I will vouch for you that it is like how I measure good experiences. It is time well spent to do that. So
get your buddy Tyler Florence to go check it out.
Yeah, you know what? Not a bad idea. Tyler was our number one first guest on this show. Yeah,
that was great too. I mean, I of course never met him until that show, but what a great guy.
Well, he's a great guy. I mean, every single guest that we have had has been, including the one today, has been just an unbelievable individual, regardless of what they're doing, their day job, just the type of people they are, which is kind of one of the criterias, right, Paul, that we have for who we have on the show and who we hang out with. I was kind of watching this move that Amazon made. Did you hear about this, where they're now requiring everyone to come back 5 days? And there was a study that was an informal study. I think they talked to like upwards of 2,600 verified corporate employees, and 91% of them are dissatisfied with the new policy. 73% are considering looking for another job because of it. And
Holy crap.
32% know someone who has quit because of it.
I mean, I don't get companies, man. Don't they realize that world's over? It's actually over.
I
I
know.
mean, COVID ended it,
Yeah.
right? It was already heading in that direction anyway. I mean, but COVID accelerated and ended the you have to be at work, uh, work ethic or
Well,
ethos.
yeah, Jassy is stirring things up, and he feels like they'll be more productive. But of course, the employees feel like, now it's we know human behavior. Now it's the loss of something. It's not the gain, and we will. It hurts us much more to lose something than to gain that. So yes, there might be an advantage in terms of the gain, but the gain is now for the company and the loss is for the individual. So
And the other side of it, when you have a habit, meaning some consistently repeated behavior, let's call it, even if it's not a habit per se, meaning, okay, you got to go into work. And then something abruptly alters that. And you
yeah,
get used to something else. What makes the people think they're going to go back to the thing that they know that they are no longer used to unless they're forced to? And the one thing people want in life is control. Well, it's not the one thing, but one of the main things they want in life is control over whatever the hell their journey is,
yep,
right? And you remember that famous study that came out? It must have been like 40 years ago or something on the amount of choice people get. The idea was that there was I can't remember what, I think it was cheese or something they were using for the subject, but they set up these retail, faux retail, but retail areas, and you could come in and choose to buy XYZ. And they had this one place where they set up 7 or 8 different choices, and people bought. They were very happy, and it was very easy for them to figure it out. And then they had another place where they had 24 different choices, and people,
yep,
let's say the percentage of people who decided on anything at all was probably 1/3 of what happened when there were 7 or 8. They were just overwhelmed by the number of choices. You feel like in that environment, you feel like you're losing control over your own decision making, right? Because there's too much for you to take in, right? And the study was kind of a benchmark for a lot, still is really, for how to look at choice, as opposed to lots of choice. Look at a measured number of
yep,
choices that are appropriate. Look, one of the things that I know when I wrote the last book I wrote was on customer engagement, and one of the things I noted in the book was, when it boils down to it, there isn't what there isn't a human alive who A doesn't want to be happy, and B uh, wants to identify and control their journey to happiness. And to do that, they have to have a purpose of some kind, right? And they spend a lot of their life figuring out their purpose. And then once they figure out something they really want to do, they start doing it. And damn you if you try to disrupt that, right?
yeah.
When they're trying to do it. And so 5 days a week at work now.
Well, let me tell you, any of the competing businesses up there, and there aren't that many, like of that size, right? Microsoft, Amazon, they're going to take advantage of this opportunity. They know there's going to be disgruntled workers. There's a huge opportunity to to poach them, and I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see if Jassy changes his mind or continues down that path. But they don't do anything in Amazon without a lot of deliberate thinking. So my guess is he's going to stick to this. So
I agree with you. Yeah, look, I mean, the irony is, of course, why do we even buy on Amazon? Because it's online and we don't have to go to a store. And
yeah,
it's convenient and easy.
yep,
And they're literally telling, well, that goes for your customers, but not you employees.
yeah, and we know culture also drives the end customer experience. So I mean, it'll be really, really fascinating to watch. One thing I forgot to just congratulate you on, Paul,
What was that?
is your 42-year anniversary.
That's actually, my wife and I figured out last night, it's 43.
Seriously, 43?
Well, 81. We were married in 81.
Oh, 43 then.
Yeah.
Yeah. 43
Thank
years.
you.
Congratulations. That was just on Wednesday, right?
Yep.
Wednesdays to when this recording stream is happening.
Ironically, we ended up not doing anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had to cancel. It's a long story with not for the show. I think though, look, you know what? The fact that as a result of that, we were able to get the guest that you have today.
Yes.
Oh, that makes me happy. You can't get a better anniversary present than that one.
Jack, what a perfect segue.
So you want to head over to the other studio and then
I've got another studio here in Hawaii.
yeah.
So,
Well, I know you always keep 2 or 3 studios in every state.
well, yeah, I'm not going to take Uber because my uncle, Chris's uncle, my wife's uncle, runs the cab, which is the primary cab company here. So I'm going to use his service.
Okay.
And I'm just
I'm just gonna. I actually hired Flash to carry me so I can get there really fast.
Oh yeah, you know him. Good. Yeah.
All right. So I'll see you there in about 15 seconds.
Yep. Okay.
right.
I'll see you there. All right.
You know what amazes me? Why are we so bland that we literally, when we get a second studio, we make it look exactly like the first one?
I know. I was thinking I should wear a shirt, and I also thought that our guest, who is a comedy writer, I would like to question whether he thinks that's funny or not.
I don't know. I mean, all I know is it works.
I mean, we got to get to, I like to have a change of scenery. Like it just feels different. So
Yeah.
I think we should keep on doing that.
Okay. Deal. So why don't you take it away? I'm so excited about this.
All right. So I'm especially excited about our guest tonight because not only is he an amazing screenwriter who I think most of the world is going to recognize his work. He's brought a lot of laughter and joy to audiences worldwide, and clearly that's something we need now. Is we need to laugh, we need to escape, we need to forget about things for a little while, and he's been doing this most of his life. He's best known for being the screenwriter behind the Ice Age
Love those
movie
movies.
franchise. I mean, Scrat, Manny, also with amazing actors voicing those characters. And besides that, he's just an amazing person. He's an amazing dad. He's an amazing husband, and most importantly for me, he's an amazing friend. So why don't we bring on the screenwriter for the Ice Age movie franchise and other things, Michael Berg.
And there he is.
There he is. Thank you for joining us. And
I've never been an anniversary gift before, Paul, so that could be
You are.
It could be really awkward and really fun. We'll see how it goes.
That's no bow though, or anything.
Probably more awkward. So Michael, we thank you very much for taking the time to join us. I know you are very busy creating joy, which is really, I've had plenty of time to spend with you and everything. And we were just up in Napa, and people are, we ran into that one woman who's just starting her career, dying to spend a little bit of time with you. You're very humble in what you've created and what you do. But you can tell by the kind of the other people that want to just spend time with you, they're just so in awe of kind of what your natural ability is. And, I just want to talk a little bit about, was was this career like, were you always like this growing up? I mean, was there like someone that you looked to, like, what was it that that was it just luck? Was there an opportunity? Did you actually decide, make a deliberate decision that this is what you wanted to do? And how do you describe what you do? Also, maybe for those that don't know you.
I mean, there's storytellers and there's people that are funny, and I hope I live in both places. But I thought I might be a novelist when I was. My dad was an English teacher. We always talked about books, but I didn't know any screenwriters. I didn't see any in Brooklyn growing up, and it never occurred to me to write for the movies until I took a fiction class in college, and everybody kept saying that it was visual and the dialogue was good. So why don't I take a screenwriting class? And it never occurred to me. And then I took a screenwriting class, and I was like, oh, I should have been here the whole time. And it just clicked.
Natural.
It just clicked. I was like, this is where I belong. And it took a long time. It took till, for me, I was lucky 2021 to throw out my LSAT books and just go say, I'll go to film school for grad school. But once I got there, I had no doubt. I know Paul's talking about when you find something that you like. I found it, and I felt unbelievably lucky to have found it.
I mean,
how did you find it when you were originally doing it? Did you see yourself doing? I mean, to me anyway, I absolutely love animated film. I love it. I mean, I'll watch everything. I mean, literally, I saw the notification I could watch Inside Out 2, and I'm going to watch it tonight. Well, not tonight, but tomorrow, right? Because it's there for me to watch. And of course, I watched all the Ice Age movies, but it always occurred to me that animated film is difficult. I mean, even at one level, more difficult.
Your sound is going a little bit.
You're reproducing emotion, right? And you're reproducing, on the actual animation, they have to reproduce human faces in animal form half the time or in cartoonish. But you also have to write to the side where people are impacted emotionally about these movies, but they're clearly, ultimately they're cartoons. So how do you even think about writing like that? I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, I don't. I just think about the characters. I don't. I had no idea that I was going to end up in animation. I had written comedies that had sold in Hollywood that got me the interview for Ice Age. And at that time, in 1999, there was only Toy Story. So I had no idea why I was at that meeting. And I had pitched a scene or two. I said, well, if you have a bunch of Ice Age characters, they were throwing out a script that was dramatic. I said, I'd put the sloth in a hot tub and he has the baby and he's picking up girls with it. And they liked it. And I didn't know what that meeting was about. And I called my agent and the agent said, they love you. They want to hire you. And I didn't know what they were talking about. And it led to 20 years in a lot of movies with Blue Sky and Fox and now Disney that, the process itself is actually quite iterative and collaborative, even more so than regular movies. But the beginning process is the same in terms of having a story of characters that you like. And my first few drafts of every movie that get greenlit are never about the animation. I've gotten better at writing comedy action sequences and really highly choreographed sequences that are all about rhythm of action and comedy. But that part is a little bit different. And that's a studio where the whole world's going to watch these big scenes that are not just verbal. And the other part of it is that I told another animated writer who came in that it's not, you can have no ego when it comes to an animated movie. And he said later, you mean it has to be surgically removed? Not that you don't have an ego, because the amount of people that are giving you feedback on every line could be 9 people, 8 people. So it's a tough process, but you end up with a better, higher quality product, which is why most of the animated movies have been good.
Yeah, they're great, actually.
I mean, if you compare 10 animated movies with 10 studio movies, at least from a few years ago, the animated movies were just a high quality movie.
Yeah.
Story wise.
And people turn, like your series, for example, Ice Age became iconic, and it led to a whole series of other movies like it. Not exactly like The Crooks or something like that, right? Those kind of movies. But the thing is, you kind of invest in the characters, right? And I do. I know I don't feel any. I actually probably feel less for the human movie characters than I do for the animated movie ones.
It's critical for any storytelling that you like the characters more than the plot, and nobody remembers plot as much as they do a character. And if you had told me after the first Ice Age there would be many more over a decade or two, I wouldn't have thought that was possible. But I think people like the characters, and I think of movies that I like, and I came up loving Plane, Trains, and Automobiles and Midnight Run. And when I was in the middle of Ice Age, I was like, this is a road movie with 3 guys and a baby. And it just clicked for me that that's a place I like to live. And I didn't have any kids. I was in my 20s. And I just thought, this is a fun place to be. And then they cast it, and it was fun and everything else. But it was a complete surprise that people reacted to it in that warm way for me.
How important? I mean, they casted 3 amazing people to do the voices. How important is that to the storytelling process?
It's pretty important, not for the storytelling process, but for the performance to really get it. It really does end up working together with the actors. Some improv, some don't. But a lot of the movies, if you notice, especially with Ice Age is a good example, a lot of those actors work solo also. Ray has done stand-up, Romano, Dennis Leary, John Leguizamo has done one-man shows. Queen Latifah has done so many different things, but they are solid performers, and almost all the time they record alone. You don't record with actors multiple at one time. And not every great actor is good at that. They need to react.
Right.
Did you have any, I forget, in addition to the 4 and all the other ones you've had to work with, have you ever had to, or would you ever have adjusted the conversational piece of the movie to fit the style of the actor's delivery?
Oh, you get to hear their voices and what they're good at, for sure. I mean, I think I can hear them in my sleep now after all these movies. But you get to get their cadences pretty well, and they're funny. They're so funny. Mostly what they're going to do well. Sometimes it surprises you if something works or doesn't work, but in animation you get to fix it because you see it on hand-drawn reels before it's animated, and if it's not clicking yet, you just rewrite it.
Okay.
The thing that occurs to me is so few people in this world get the opportunity to make people laugh at scale, and to bring joy at scale. Do you think about that? Do you think about how that makes people feel and the emotional connection? And
I don't. I only think about it when people say something to me, and it's an incredibly nice feeling. But I think of when I see a movie that makes me laugh or I feel some emotion, I just want to do my part. I want to do my thing when I'm not watching a movie. And I find it's what I seek out as an audience member, usually emotional and some comedy. So when I hear something, or I see the Scranton Thanksgiving Day Parade, or somebody's, my son's friend says something on the playground from Ice Age, then you feel there's an impact. Or you travel abroad, you see a poster somewhere, you realize it's not just here.
Yeah.
It's great, but I definitely don't think about it except for telling a story when I'm sitting down.
I mean, you're also writing, not effectively, actually, you're writing, okay, as you said, it's a road trip, but it's comedy. I mean, comedy is very specific, right? As opposed to anything else you see out there. And to me, it's, again, I'm a writer, but I write nonfiction, let's call it, and boring. But how do you, who's your heroes? Who are your heroes, and how did you evolve kind of the skill set for that?
I mean, it's, I mentioned some of the movies that I've liked, but all the comedies, whether it's going from Wedding Crashers to Something About Mary to Bridesmaids and all that stuff, things that surprise you and move you, I just like them all. I mean, I've liked Ivan Reitman when I was a kid. And, it comes out of character, usually. If the character is really set up well enough, you will sort of see the conflict and the humor in all of them, whether it's, The Odd Couple or Ice Age. You're going to know where they're coming from if you know the character. And I want to give a shout out to other writers, because animation uses other writers. So we've had Mike Reese contribute jokes. He's been on The Simpsons for 30 years.
Yeah.
We have Peter Ackerman, who I've worked with occasionally. We wrote Ice Age 3 together. He's been on The Americans. He's a great writer. So it's interesting. And Yoni Brenner, who's another great writer. We will write jokes separately and sometimes together, and then rewrite each other's jokes. So I get to see the big picture of the whole movie frequently. and the green light drafts, but I would say it gets much more collaborative as time goes on.
Wow.
Has it always been that way? I mean, how are
Oh.
things change? I mean, how have things changed? I mean, you were obviously telling me you don't have to travel as much, right? Just Zoom is, but with technology, I mean, obviously AI is. Would love to get your opinion on that, but just in general, you've been doing this since when did you say Ice Age? You
I
started.
started writing that first draft probably 99 of the first movie. It came out 2002. It's usually about a 2.5 year process at best. It's usually a 2.5 to 4 year process per movie. It can be 2 to 3, but that's rare.
And it's still that way.
And it's still 200 people, probably 150 people. And when Paul, you're talking about the look and everything else, once the draft is approved, you have your lighting and everything else, and your animation, and then it becomes even a different level of collaboration where the physical humor comes in, and then I can see what they're doing. I can talk to the artists. I wish I could talk to them more in person, which I'm not doing these days. I'm more on Zoom, and the conversations are not as long or as casual as when you're in the same place.
Yeah.
So who, when you were growing up though, like who was your first or couple of like comedy heroes? Like you thought this was the funniest people you've ever seen or the funniest person you've ever seen? I mean, I grew up with the Marx Brothers. I'm go way back. My dad actually grew up with the Marx Brothers, and then I loved them because he loved them. But became my kind of line of tradition of comedy, was their style of craziness.
Yeah, I think at home, really watching Cheers, like with my mom, and Taxi when I was a little kid, and then from there into the more, Frasier, Cheers, all those shows, and into up to about Seinfeld is when I was in film school, and I wrote a Seinfeld spec script, because back then you'd write a TV script of an existing comedy to get an agent, and I was at American Film Institute, where you're not really writing Seinfeld, usually writing something very dramatic and important, and it was a sign that I needed to maybe go out of film school and just start writing, on my own, and work a different way. But the movie business is very good at using people that they like their writing for what they want, and that's something that's really, I had no idea about that. Like, so I had written a fake basketball comedy set in the '70s that I sold about a team called the New Jersey Turnpikes that was set in the last year of the ABA. And I had to relive that with Semi-Pro.
That was Kelsey Grammer, right?
Kelsey Grammer it's a long story. That movie deserves its own podcast. It's in the Witness Protection Program, never to be seen again. It's a $10 million movie that was never released by Universal, and everything I wrote was changed. But at the same time that was happening, I had written Ice Age and had no idea it was gonna, succeed. But Hollywood, I think even now, is good at taking people, they like your talent, and they say, hey, we've got 3 animals and a baby, we've got a dinosaur, we got a spaceship, whatever it is, they want you to write what the marketing team has approved. And that is a tricky dynamic, because then you're really being a professional for hire. And you have to find a story that you can relate to, or you would not do a good job if you take the job.
Yeah.
What goes in? I mean, do you just like see well, first of all, how do you see? I mean, if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I got 3 babies, a spaceship, and a dinosaur," I'm just adding them all into one big script here. What makes you say, "Okay, I can go with that one. I like that one"? I mean, what are you seeing? Like,
you have to have a relation. For me, I have to have a relationship that I can see it going somewhere, that it makes sense. And all the other stuff is going to be fun, but it's not really about that. It's about the relationship that you create. And if you don't have it, you're not going to have a story that anybody cares about.
But is that something that happens right away with you?
No,
like,
God, no.
You
got to sit there for like 3 weeks and just stare at the paper and think, is this the thing that, Kenny tells his big secret to Paul, and then their friendship's on the rocks. And you have to think you have a story that really is going to resonate. And you could spend 3 weeks there and you don't have one, and then you're out of luck. Yeah. It's like, you're not going to do it. So I think for me, breaking the story is the hardest part by far.
Amazing.
If you know the characters, you know the story, then you can write a scene every day. But to know the story takes me a couple of months easily.
Have you? I mean, you mentioned earlier that you kind of grew up thinking about being a novelist, among other things. You still think about that?
A little bit. I work in the collaborative writing space called the Writers Room in Astor Place and Broadway, and I feel like that world has gotten a little bit Hollywoodized also in terms of blockbusters, and it's a hard game. And
to be perfectly honest, I can't stand that. I mean, I hate I don't like um, the people writing novels to get it published as a movie, right? I mean, you write the novel. If it happens to be worthy of a movie, it'll be worthy of a movie. But if you're not writing it for the purpose that it should be for, which is to produce a really good piece of work for people to engage with.
You probably have your finger on two problems, because people are not publishing a lot, and then the people in the movies are not able to sell original scripts like they have in the past. So they think, how do I reverse engineer it? Which is what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's fraught, because nobody wants something unless it's a podcast or a book, or property wise, it's got some sort of value. And I think the pendulum's about to change in Hollywood. There's going to be a little more receptiveness to original ideas. I'm not sure. The last 7 or 8 years haven't been the greatest for movies. But the last 3 months, the box office has been so good for at least studio movies that maybe some comedies will come back, original comedies.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Do you like the new Frasier?
I've only seen the pilot. I didn't seem like the old one to me, so I was not.
There's some people who show up in it from the original, but that's about it.
That's a hard one to compare, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, Roz makes an appearance. That's all I can say.
I mean, how do you determine like success? Like, I'm sure with you, knowing you, it's not like box office receipts or whatever, but you spend. I mean, I know, because I know you. Your blood, sweat, and tears in writing the best the screenwriting, the best words, the best story that you can, and then working through the process, which I know can be really exciting but frustrating, all this stuff over 2 years. How do you, at the end, when you're like, okay, what does it mean to you to be successful? Like,
it's before the pandemic, the writers and agents had a fight, and they were not aligned for about a year. Everybody had to fire their agents. Then the pandemic came into it, and it accelerated a lot of changes in the movie business, including people not going to movies, which was already kind of on the horizon. But I had plenty of time to think about, is it over? Just in general, like, is it over as a profession for most people?
Yeah.
And it was pretty distressing, but I thought, I really like spending every day writing a scene, and that is where I like to be. And if I can keep doing it, I want to keep doing it. And I want to keep telling stories. As I get older, I think about baseball more, because your process is the same. The results are not the same. So I've spent 6 months on a project, putting the exact same effort of work. Nobody cares. You put in the same amount of work the next 6 months, somebody might care. You sell it, it doesn't get made. But the day-to-day existence doesn't change. So if I can do that and find that it's interesting to me, I just have the hope that somebody else is going to find it interesting to read and then to see. And I'm pretty happy doing that, on a daily basis.
Boy, pretty lucky.
You're up against a lot too. I mean, the other side is just there's this thing that goes on in the tech business world. We've had this saying that's gone on for a long time, which was, in order to be distinct, you have to separate signal from noise, right? Now, I actually have a slightly different take on it, and have for a long time too, which is, no, there's a lot of really good content out there, and you have to separate signal from signal, not noise, right? Noise, signal always separates itself from, but signal from signal is much harder. Now you've got Netflix now, you've got Paramount Plus, you've got Peacock, you've got all these others who are not only producing or let's say in some cases showing Apple TV, and Amazon Prime, we're not only showing like shows from the networks, but they're doing original limited series, original movies. I mean, there's a lot of content, right? And it's coming from all across the globe, and anyone has access to it. Like I told Kenny about this show that I've recently fallen in love with, which is called the Majorca Files. Mm-hmm. And it's basically a detective buddy show, but it's a male and female detective in Majorca. And it's 3 seasons long, and it's incredibly well acted, and the plots are really interesting. And to your point about the characters, both of the leads, actually all of the leads, are incredible. You invest in them, right? Just because they're great The chemistry is great. Everything about it's great. One, how do you do you have to take that into account when you're producing anything, or do you just sort of isolate it and do your own thing? And two, are you ever looking at doing things like a limited series or an original show or something like that?
Sure. For your first question, it's there is a significant consolidation about to happen in most of Hollywood. It's been happening for the past 12 months. You won't see it till as the year unfolds, but there's going to be far fewer shows. Just the overspending of what happened before to gain viewership seems to have failed, and Netflix won. But to your point, the amount of stuff that you can access is incredible. The quality of it is incredible. If you think about that, you're going to be in your bed in a fetal position. You're never going to get up. If you think about all of the competition. So I don't think about that. I just think about the story that I want to tell. And the other thing I always tell people is, it's back to baseball analogies, you have to be like a reliever, a high leverage reliever. Like if you get knocked down, you have to come back. I know people who are talented who can't get knocked down, spend 6 months on a project, 9 months, and it just zero, nothing happens, no income, nothing, and come back and do it again. It's really hard. So I'd say between those two things, you have to have a certain mindset. The second part of your question, I think we were talking about, it's limited series and stuff like that. I would love to do it, and it's difficult. I know this sounds crazy to people maybe outside the business, but your 25 years in the movie business is almost irrelevant in movies. I've had a pilot job that I liked, didn't happen. Another job, they look at you with skepticism because there aren't many people moving between movies and TV today, but they're usually a pretty high-powered few. And they'd rather go with somebody who had 3 hit shows before they invest in you.
God, it sounds like, Paul, being a founder, right?
Yeah.
If you are a serial entrepreneur, you've been invested, even had exits, or not even successful exits. Investors are a lot more interested in risking with you than if you're a first, even though you have a phenomenal team, amazing idea, whatever. You just don't have the track record.
Right. You're unproven.
Yeah,
it's easier for them to sell their boss and their boss on the guy that had 2 shows. And it's crazy. I've been on calls with 2 people who have had very successful movies in your package, and they're like, okay, maybe we'll see. It's just not the moment. It is possible. It's just not easy.
Could you, well, no, never mind. That wouldn't work. I just realized I have to take into account things like, copyrights and ownership with what I was about to say. I was about to say, could you, for example, turn Ice Age into a limited series? Well, I'm sure you could actually do it, but you don't own it, right? So
right. None of that. Any of the big IP is not really up for grabs. There's, it's really managed in huge business plans.
It's no different in the technology world in that. Mm-hmm. Plenty you can do with technology, but if you don't own it, you can't do anything with it. So from that standpoint. So I know you're a Mets fan, but nonetheless,
I knew that would come up.
There's probably more comedy fans from the Mets world than the Yankees world. natural flip side.
Yeah, well, I don't know. The Yankees are just more like annoying than they are anything else. They just annoy the hell out of me. Although they are winning, I do know that. I got a notification that Stanton hit a home run. Right, that's so good for him. So anyway, if you take kind of your total body of work, everything you've ever done, and you look back at it, did you have this one? Well, I'm sure you had many, but is there one like eureka type moment that just with this gigantic body of work and experience you've had, it still shines right through everything? Right.
I think every writer, I don't know how many writers you've talked to. I'm sure everybody's got their things. They're not their Moby Dick, but they have their things that drive them crazy. And one of them I still would like to do. One of them I've been frustrated with. I briefly had the rights to, Universal had the rights to Where's Waldo, and I want to do an Ultimate Escape Artist movie. Live action, with a guy who could get out of anything, and turns out it's an origin story. He becomes Waldo, in the end. A guy who could pour Coke on himself in the jungles of Mexico, and then all the butterflies cover him and he disappears. Or skydives with mannequins packed in ice, and you can't see them, and 1,000 mannequins are parachuting out. Like, it was a big, expensive movie that that division Universal didn't want to make, and it bothers me because I could see it. I could see it as a, as a big movie done in a way that, like, Pirates of the Caribbean had been reinventing a genre. Like, to take something, I never look at the subject matter and think that's a stupid idea. Like, take a second, think about what you can do with it. I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean is a ride that became a pretty interesting first movie or two with a great cast, and those guys are good writers, and it was a genre kind of thing that bent. So there's definitely exceptions like that, and I definitely would like to do a something loosely based on my dad. Was a charismatic teacher in Brooklyn who ended up being a murder suspect of one of the kids in his class. My dad didn't murder anybody, but he was a charismatic teacher, who really loved his thing. And there's all kinds of things I'd like to do, but it's
Welcome Back, Kotter.
Definitely not Welcome Back, Kotter. Probably set in the 80s, though, not the 70s.
Right.
80s Brooklyn was very a stressed place. Definitely.
Yeah, well, that was Son of Sam, right?
80s. Well, the 80s was definitely more. There's a lot of racial unease and a lot of things happening. Really, in the I grew up near Coney Island side, towards it was called Gravesend, but it was it might as well have been 20 miles from Manhattan instead of like 3 or 5.
Wow,
Really
Gravesend in Coney Island.
Gravesend. It's a very small neighborhood at the end. It's between Bensonhurst and Coney Island.
Huh.
Bay Ridge and Coney Island.
I have to look it up after the show is over.
Yeah.
I am going to do that. I've never heard of it, which is, I mean, I'm through and through New Yorker, and I like pay attention.
I think there was a TV show in the past 5 years or 8 years, maybe called Gravesend or based in Gravesend. It was a blue collar neighborhood that had a lot of mafia, blue collar, working class mafia people in it.
Huh.
So, someone just texted me to say they wanted to ask you, because I guess there's some actors don't like to actually watch the movies they acted in. Do you actually go to a theater and see your own movies? And what does that feel like?
No, I saw. I went with my nieces and nephews in Ohio once to watch, one of the Ice Age movies because it was the week it came out. But I definitely did not go stand or see it. I do want to see it with an audience just because.
Yeah.
It's different than seeing it with the people that worked on it or a premiere because people just laugh because they worked on it. And I think I told Kenny once, like, it was such a crazy communal experience to see it on a plane in the early 2000s because everybody was watching the same movie. I know it sounds like preposterous to anybody, under 40, that people would all watch one movie. But in the old days, you could hear the whole plane laugh or gasp or whatever what movie you were watching.
Yeah,
that's right.
And that,
I remember those times. Yeah, it would play.
Well, that was when they had the monitor in the middle of the aisle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But getting back to your early conversation that you guys were having about Amazon going back to work, like, I look at theaters for a while people were not going, and I feel like everybody can remember the communal feeling of laughing in a theater.
Yeah.
Over a certain age, and you can remember the movies, whether it was Bridesmaids or 21 Jump Street, whatever it is, and I miss it so much. And I'm hoping
Princess Bride.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it comes back at least a little bit beyond Marvel and beyond Star Wars.
Yeah.
And, Fast and Furious.
Yeah, I hope so too. There's something about, like, someone who builds experiences like I do. There's just nothing like that communal experience where you are all sharing in an experience together, yet also experiencing it individually in terms of how you relate to it. And
have you guys talked to people about that? Like, the alchemy of laughing with an audience is so different than everybody's been trained to laugh alone at home in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, do people talk about that as an experience?
Well, the answer is, interestingly enough, I literally had a very similar conversation to that at Dreamforce last week, and we were just talking about humor, really, and they would where it started, and this was sort of points to it, was I had commented on something, which is that when you watch these music videos that have very large audiences singing, the audiences are always they're literally in tune. They're literally never off key. The whole audience is always kind of quasi-celestial in terms of the amazing harmony that exists in the audience as a whole, completely unplanned. And we were talking about that, and that led to a discussion on more I'll call it more on the infectious side of laughter.
Mhm.
Because and why, people like when people laugh together, they're laughing individually and together, both. They're never laughing one or the other. This is at least how the discussion went. I don't know if you guys agree with this, but that, yeah, if I see something, let's say I'm in that celestial harmonious audience and I see something funny and I laugh, and I'm the first one to laugh. I just think something funny happened, but that other people saw it though. If it was just something funny happened to me on the left, nobody's going to see that. And then they typically will start laughing. They'll follow suit because of that kind of the infectious nature of the audience itself. And
Absolutely.
yeah, but you're still laughing individually. It's those famous stories about you've seen the pictures of all those birds flying in absolute geometrical formation almost. I found out that bird one, whoever that may be, it doesn't have to be any bird there, is getting its signals only from the next bird. Right? That's it. Right? Not all the birds. It's not, it's only from the next bird, the next bird, the next bird, the next bird, and it's leading to that stunning formation. That's how we were talking about that, why audience, but that then again, it builds back, and that's the other side. So that was a conversation. I don't know what you guys think about that.
It was interesting when we streamed at the Warriors, when we streamed the first basketball game in virtual reality. We were giving people outside the arena the opportunity to, quote, feel like they were on the court watching the game. And one of the really interesting things that came back was that it didn't feel the same, even close to the same, as being actually in the arena, because there's just a completely different. Well, I mean, you're excluding most of your senses in the first place, but it's also that you are not able to experience it with your second family, with the other people around you. Besides the fact you couldn't feel confetti and you couldn't feel the wind of the players, you couldn't get the smell of that or hear the sound of a basketball. So it was a unique experience, but just a different experience. And I think that's what people are experiencing. When you watch a comedy show streamed on Netflix, for me, it's just a completely different experience than if I was in a comedy shop in Little Italy in San Francisco, where you're immersed. It might be a little bit of the difference between an absorptive experience where the experience goes into you, and immersive experience where you feel like you go into the experience. Two valid experiences, but just very different. So when it comes to the experience creator, you really have to think about what you want. Now, I mean, I don't think that probably changes how you write, whether someone streams in there or watches in a theater. But
no, I'd argue you'd feel physically different if you laugh at a comedy club or at a movie with an audience, and you watch a movie at home. I think you would feel physically a little bit of a slightly different release, right?
I agree.
Afterwards.
100%. I also think there is a little bit, Paul, what you said. There's a little maybe different depth of laughter. You're looking at people who are laughing. There's something called yoga laughter, laughing, which you can laugh. The body doesn't know whether you're doing it or not, but you start. And I've done yoga. I was trained how to do laughing yoga by the guy who created it in India. And you start laughing, fake laughing, and then other people start. Then you see them laughing, and you're actually now starting to laugh, right? I mean, and that's a completely different experience for me than sitting by myself and doing a little chuckling or laughing. So I hope it comes back, Michael, because in a bigger way, not just these big movie things, but behavior. This goes back to the Amazon thing, right, Paul? Like, people get used to doing things, and as John Mulaney says, it's amazing we do anything because it's so easy not to do anything. Hopefully,
I have one final question for you. It was two parts. Part one is your favorite movie of all time, and part two is, and not counting your own, of course. Part two is the movie that you wish you were a writer on. Now they can be two different movies. They could be the same movie. It doesn't matter.
People usually hate the first question because the writers hate them. I think because it changes over time.
It's
There's
okay.
definitely a few, no, but there are movies that I like in different genres, in different ways, like Sunset
fine.
Boulevard or Blade Runner, or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. They're all, I would say, my favorite 10 movies are
Okay,
in that
fair enough.
range.
Uh-huh.
I also want to throw out Sullivan's Travels, which is a little nerdy. And that's a very famous 40s movie that the Coen brothers took a little piece of called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And made that movie, out of Sullivan's Travels. The main character wants to make an important movie called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And all everybody else wants to do is make comedies. He wants to make an important movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And the Coen brothers had fun with that. With that. So those are movies, Sunset Boulevard, Sullivan's Travels, Blade Runner, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and many others. But
Okay.
there's the second part is, I would say, I don't always feel that way. Every once in a while, you feel like there's a movie that you could have been in the right spot. Like I know John Hamburg, who wrote Meet the Parents, and I was like, oh, that's a movie I could see.
Yeah.
I could see me clicking with right away, and he did a great job. And there's Flirting with Disaster is another Ben Stiller movie that was kind of a crazy movie. David O. Russell.
What was the
Uh,
name of it?
Flirting with Disaster.
Flirting with Disaster.
Most of it still holds up. It's a little bit of a crazy movie. Maybe some parts would be canceled today. I'm not sure. It's an amazing cast. So that's another comedy. So any of those like sort of out there comedies, and it's funny because I ended up doing exclusively family entertainment, but I started in just all audience comedies, not hard R's. But
Yeah.
it's just you kind of, this other stuff I've written either hasn't gotten made or sold or anything.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you.
Well, Michael, thank you for spending a little bit of your day with us. It was incredible. So
Thanks.
thank you, and continued success. I can't wait to spend more time with you as usual. It was great to see you recently. And, say hi to Jamie for me, and have an incredible rest of the day and week.
And I hope to someday give you a hug in person.
Good luck to the Yankees. Have fun in Hawaii.
And good luck to the Mets.
Thanks.
All right, Mike.
Easy.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. God damn, that was great.
You know, to have like just that amount of ability, and also to know that you're doing what you love from the very beginning. I'm so jealous at times of that feeling. You probably had that too, Paul.
Not not the same way. I mean, I loved writing the books I wrote, and but you know what? They burnt me out at the same time. And listen, I wrote 8 business books, okay, and they all were published, and Sierra Speed Light sold like 250,000 copies. It did really well for a niche business book, 9 languages. That's all great, but he's kind of doing the thing I would love to be able to do. Now, do I have that level? I don't know. I don't want to say I do or I don't. I don't know. But I learned, aside from the fact I just love that guy. Right? I learned an enormous amount on I don't want to say on the craft of writing. That's not really right, but on the way to think about it, I guess, is a better way to put it.
You know what's amazing? So, first of all, he's incredibly smart, but in addition to that, he's very funny. And the way that he looks at the world and processes it, it just amuses me so much. He was telling me around our house on one street, we have an exorbitant amount of speed bumps. And when he was coming to the house, he made a comment about it, and then he says, I could see how that could be comedic in a movie, because it's one thing to go over 1 or 2, but then to keep going over all of them and then to make a point. Like, who thinks like that, right? Like, I'm sure when you said that bird thing, he probably already had an idea what that lead bird's name might have been, right? Because he just thinks like that. He takes the world in, and what a gift to be able to have a perspective of the world that ends up being comedic.
Man,
You know,
look, I don't even know. I just the idea of a human being that can actually be funny. I'm not even going to use the word comedic. Funny, right? Just I love it. That's all I can tell you. There's nothing more from my soul. There's nothing better than humor. And look, when I was a kid, there
I
was this
agree.
humorist who was very popular in the 40s and 50s, became kind of a misogynistic jerk when he got older, but his name was S.J. Perelman. And the thing about Perelman that was amazing was the quality of his writing was off the charts. His command of the English language was like incredible. And he would take a real life situation, like a little clip he would cut out from a newspaper. It wasn't movie clips then. It was literally a clip from a newspaper. And he turned it into a full-blown story about smugglers in, Molucca, right? I mean, it was just like insane, but at the same time, so well crafted and so articulate. When I would be, as a teenager, I'd get depressed. I would take the best of S.J. Perelman and read it, and I would never be depressed after I was finished reading parts of that book. My father was a Perelman fan. When I moved out of the house and grew older, I have a copy literally sitting on my desk in my office always. But that's what I'm saying. But it's also the quality and the craftsmanship and the skill that it takes to do it is amazing. And because you're impacting somebody who's not just seeing it, but hearing it in the mind's eye, so to speak. I don't know if you can hear in an eye, but one way or the other, you get the idea. So, yeah, well, no, that's what I'm saying. And when Ice Age came out, I mean, obviously, I had no idea who Michael was then because I didn't know you then either. But I watched it, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I got it right away. I love that, transposing just animated non-existing things and people into something that you felt something for, and at the same time would at absolute worst you just smile. I mean, that was the worst. You just smile. Other than that, you laugh out loud, and then care about the characters. And although I'm probably I invest a little bit in the story too, but that's what I mean. That's a artist.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. And again, when you spend time with him, you have even a greater appreciation for how he thinks and really the skill of what it takes to. We're the recipient of a lot of 2.5 years. So maybe we were talking before the show, but 2.5 years of work to bring something to craftsmanship, really craftsmanship.
Yeah.
So anyways, just a delight to have him on. And after maybe some of his other work comes out, we'll have him back. Maybe
that'd be great. My God, that'd be so good.
Yeah. Maybe he can take us through some scenes and help us understand how he created those scenes.
If he's willing to do that, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'm hoping he would. And just to before we wrap up, Aloha Friday began in 1966.
Okay,
from a manager of Bank of Hawaii first wore an Aloha shirt on a Friday, and then the Hawaiian Fashion Guild promoted the practice, and Aloha Friday was born.
So this is the Hawaiian version of Casual Friday, basically.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Wilson.
Yeah, got it. Go to the office in your Hawaiian shirt.
Yep.
Not a suit and tie. Okay.
Now, of course, it's mostly all Hawaiian shirts. So.
Right. Right. That's what I mean.
You go to funerals in a Hawaiian shirt. So yeah. All right. Well,
all right,
Paul, Another phenomenal show.
God damn, man, we're lucky that we get to talk to people.
We
like
are
this, aren't we?
seriously lucky to be able to bring really amazing people on and just share in their glory and what they're able to bring to the world. Because really, that's kind of what we wanted to do, right? Is it's not so much about exactly the profession; it's just how are they making their dent in the world? And so many people are doing incredible things. If you look back of all the people that we've had, it's been quite amazing. So I can't wait for next month.
Me either. All right, sir. Well, I'm sure, be communicating with you tomorrow. But
Yeah.
right. Other than that,
Look
I will
forward to that.
definitely be seeing you on this show within the month.
Hawaii. Is that
Aloha, sir. And I guess
aloha, Paul?
I'll take us out.
All right.
This has been a Players Productions Network digital broadcast.